Travis, in his last letter after this one, said that victory will cost Santa Anna more than defeat. He was right. The losses were unbelievable against the Mexican army, but still they were able to take the Alamo. Meanwhile, at a place called Washington on the Brazos, a group of volunteers were writing a a Declaration of Independence, and then a Constitution. And on March the 2nd, 4 days before the Alamo fell, under the leadership of Sam Houston and others, Texas declared independence from Mexico. The Alamo walls breached. Santa Anna's army is moving through Texas, and Sam Houston is trying to form another army. Remember, Santa Anna's army was no slouch. They were a professional bunch. They had defeated all of those other folks in Mexico that had sought independence and revolted against the dictatorship. They were well trained and had yet to lose a battle. In history, this is called the Run Rape, where Texans who lived between San Antonio and Louisiana moved toward the United States, the runaway scrape. Sam Houston's trying to find an army and design an army. Meanwhile, Santa Anna is feeling undefeatable. And so he approaches the area of what is now called the Plains of San Jacinto. That's outside of Houston, on the eastern side of Houston, where the Buffalo River meets Harrisburg. And on a peninsula there, in a marsh, Sam Houston had decided he was going to fight. Yet to have fought a battle. The Mexican army yet to be defeated. General Sam, as we call him, had an army of about 900 that he had assembled. Once again, volunteers. Once again, from people all over the United States. And once again, Tejanos, Texans of Spanish descent, had assembled together to do battle really on April the 22nd, 1836. However, Sam Houston assembled a war council. His commanders said, "We're not waiting till tomorrow." Battles usually take place in the morning when the sun comes up. But on an afternoon, in the heat of the day, Sam Houston decided he was going to attack the Mexican forces of Santa Anna. History says, tradition primarily says, that Sam Houston was busy and occupied by the Yellow Rose of Texas, Emily Morgan, who was of mixed race and was keeping Santa Anna occupied in an encounter and kept him from noticing the Texas army being assembled. That's legend, tradition, based on a little historical fact. But we honor Emily Morgan in our history, and we've named a building for her because of what she accomplished in the Texas Revolution, the first Yellow Rose of Texas. The Texans assemble on the high plains, and they march in broad daylight. There were so few of them, they had to make one column. They were led also by Captain Juan Seguin. Juan Seguin was a Tejano. He had a cavalry regiment. Wasn't really a regiment. It was just a handful of Tejanos. And to make sure that Juan Seguin, Captain Seguin, and his Tejanos weren't mistaken for Santa Anna's army, Sam Houston had Juan Seguin put playing cards in their hat bands so they would be recognized as loyalists to Texas and not to Santa Anna. In those days, I understand the playing card was not small like we have today, but it was rather large playing cards. And they stuck those in their hats, the headbands of their sombreros. The fight was on. The Texans come down the hill, catch the enemy by surprise. Overwhelming defeat by Santa Anna's army, his first defeat. In 18 minutes, half of the Mexican army was killed. The other half was captured. There were more captured than in the Texas army. There were about 900 Texans, about 1,800 Mexicans, thereabouts. And they were captured. Santa Anna got away. He's later found, changed his presidential commander-in-chief dictator outfit into a private. and he's captured. He looks like a private. He's brought into the campgrounds. His troops saw who he was. They stood up and saluted him, and Sam Houston had captured the president and commander and dictator of the enemy, Santa Anna. Texas declared its independence on March the 2nd, 1836. It was realized on April the 21st, 1836. Texas claimed land. Here's a map of what Texas looked like and claimed to be Texas in 1836 after the Battle of San Jacinto. All of what now is Texas, but there's more land. Part of New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, and part of Wyoming was claimed by Texas. In fact, Texas ceded this land to the United States after Texas became part of the United States, because Texas was a country for 9 years. Sam Houston was its president. It had its own army. It had to fight off Mexican army again to invaders, and remained a republic for 9 years. Then Texas decided to join the Union. It wasn't easy. It was not something that was popular to put Texas in the United States. In fact, it could not get in by a treaty. It takes 2/3 of a vote by the Senate to get in by a treaty, or a treaty to be signed. So it was a joint resolution, and Texas got into the United States by 2 votes when a senator, I understand, from Louisiana changed his vote and voted for the admission of Texas. We, those of us from Texas, because of our history, because of the people who are there of all races, have a unique spirit, in my opinion. It is the spirit of freedom. But that's the spirit of America. You know, our history is not really based upon what happened in the 13 colonies. Our history is based independent of that, but it's the same. It's a spirit of liberty and freedom from oppression, whether it's King George III or whether it's a dictator named Santa Anna. On April 21st, we celebrate San Jacinto Day. On Saturday, tomorrow, there'll be a reenactment of the Battle of San Jacinto. We have a monument called the San Jacinto Monument there on the marshes of San Jacinto. It looks very similar to the Washington Monument, except, of course, it's taller than the Washington Monument. The star on top of the monument makes it taller than the Washington Monument. And as a side note, the Texas State Capitol is taller than this Capitol right here, to some 15 feet. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, that history is important. Our history is important. People who lived before us, who fought for liberty, who volunteered to fight oppression, even though the odds were overwhelming, that many of them gave up their lives for that. They are as important, and they are as much a part of our tradition as the young men and women we have now fighting for America's interest all over the world. And they, like those volunteers in the Texas War of Independence, are volunteers, raising their hand to stand between us and tyranny. So we honor those folks who fought and made Texas a country for 9 years. We are proud of that, and it is important that all of us come to remember our history. And that's just the way it is. I yield back.